This person mentions allodial title, but there's no context for it. You know, it's funny because my dad always used to say about Minnesota property, it's allodial title. The bastards can't tax it. But we need to understand what allodial title is. There are two different types of title under which property real estate is held. One of them is feudal title and the other one is allodial title. Under a feudal title system, the property that you occupy and that you manage is not ever truly yours. It's always subject to some higher authority or some superior power, like a king or some kind of government or a landlord. Property system that existed in Europe for centuries was a feudal title system. Tenants of that property worked the property and they were able to enjoy some of the fruits of the produce from that property, but it was always subject to leases, to rents, and to superior control by the landlord or the king, right? The United States set up a system of allodial title. Allodial title is a system under which there is no conditional ownership. The person who owns the property is the ultimate superior sovereign of that property. It is not subject to rents. It is not subject to leases. It is not subject to some outside control by a higher authority. Allodial title means full ownership with no superior claim on that property. Now, here's the problem with that idea. Even though the Minnesota Constitution provides for allodial title, the fact of the matter is it's a feudal system. And the reason is because there are three types of claims that government agencies can put on property. Number one is land use restriction. The government can tell you what you can do on your property and what you can't do on your property. The other claim to the property is eminent domain, where a government can step in and say, we're going to take your property for public use. Now, they have to give you compensation at fair market value if the government's going to take your property for public use. But the fact is, they can take your property for public use. And then the third one, and of course the most common one, everybody's favorite, is real estate taxes. Every single year, year in and year out, even after you've paid off the bank and even after you've covered every other expense for that property, local governments, county governments typically come in and assess the value of your property and say, okay, now you get to pay us X dollars of real estate taxes for the right to own that property. If you don't pay the real estate taxes, you lose title to your property. All right, so that's a feudal system, friends. It's not unconditional ownership. It's not absolute ownership. It's subject to the control of some higher power, in this case, a government entity. I actually testified before the Minnesota Senate on this very issue in the mid-1990s. The legislature of the state of Minnesota was talking about jacking up property taxes here and there. I appeared before the Minnesota Senate and I testified about Article 1, Section 15 of the Minnesota Constitution, which nobody reads, by the way. And if they do read it, they don't understand it. Here's what it says. All lands within the state are allodial, and feudal tenures of every description with all their incidences are prohibited, which is a beautiful sentence. It's a beautiful sentence. It prohibits eminent domain. It prohibits land use restrictions, and it most certainly prohibits real estate taxes. But of course, the leftists in the Minnesota legislature, that goes in one ear and out the other, and they didn't, they just had no impact on it. But the fact of the matter is, friends, you don't own your property as long as you are holding that property in what is called in modern U.S. law now fee simple ownership. So even though it's supposed to be an allodial system, in practice it operates as a feudal system, and that's why the government is in their pocket year after year after year, even after they paid for their property.